Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric, and we're continuing When I Feel Like It series, just here for the vibes, where I take a look at some very visually interesting games from my personal collection that I have absolutely no idea what's going on in them because they have never been translated from their native Japanese. We're going to be taking a look at two games today, Necronomicon and the Man Called Dracula, both by Fairytale. Before we get too far involved there, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like, subscribe, that notification bell definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But off the top with Necronomicon, this is a Lovecraftian horror visual novel adventure game that has some really interesting art and vibes going on. This woman has just given birth to this demon spawn baby that has absolutely no legs. It just ends in a tail, kind of like a tadpole. And these three black robe figures, maybe priests, who knows, how could we tell, are not impressed with what has just happened. And I love this little cutaway to this dithered art. This game, as well as the Man Called Dracula, have some amazing visuals. A lot of times they are just still images, but you can see how much work has been put into them. And as this priest steps on the demon baby with those glowing red eyes and the axe above his head, you know what's going to happen next, even if you don't see it yet. And that axe with that speed is coming down onto the demon baby's head. This is just the intro to the game. It's just introducing us as to what's going on in the world of Necronomicon. Now, I will say, like most Japanese visual novels, there is some content that I just can't show you on YouTube, hence the black bars on the left and right. But this HUD is just absolutely incredible. The woman looks like a flying Valkyrie, and it just morphs into this H.R. Geiger-esque sort of gory image at the bottom with that skull coming out. You can 100% see what this is inspired by. Lovecraftian horror with Arkham here, with that H.R. Geiger art around the edges as well. And that, of course, comes further into play as we get into the game. We're basically just prefacing it that this gentleman is riding a train into a town, and obviously they're trying to find that area of Arkham. The beginning of the game is slow, and it kind of sets up everything that's going on, going from this very normal world you'll see here to a much smaller, stranger village. It's kind of like he's traveling out into the countryside, and like most horror movies kind of set up, the further away from civilization you get, the weirder things get. And this bus driver here, now that we're off the train, has clearly seen something very, very strange. We're not going to find out what that is. The game isn't going to show it to you. It's just going to bring you from this scene right to the next one, where you're going to see this wooden bridge in the rain going somewhere. All of the visuals, all of the design really lead you down this path to knowing that whatever you're going to next is going to be worse than the thing you just experienced. And I do appreciate, compared to some visual novel games, this at least gives you a bounding box to show you what you can and should click on, because in a lot of these games you have to click on everything before you can transition to the next scene. So having those bounding boxes is spectacular, which all games did this. And the great part about that is, if you want to see the end of Necronomicon even with no Japanese language experience, you can, because the game is going to clue you in every single time as to what's going on. But now that we've visited the local hotel in the town we're in, we're going to be introduced to two other gentlemen that are researching something. You can suss out some of the story here as to what's going on. You are here to investigate probably the cult that had that demon baby axed in the beginning. Not a sentence I get to use very often, but I do here. And by talking to each of the individuals and researching what's going on around the room, you're able to further progress the story. And when you get to a later scene where you talk to the man in the lab coat, clearly a doctor, he's going to clue you in on something that he observed in the previous scene. It's always giving you slightly more information as you go along, but as the screen fades in, you're going to see that he has a Masonic ring on his ring finger. What does that mean to the story? Well, we have Lovecraftian horror, we have H.R. Geiger inspired artwork, and we also have Masonic lore involved in all of this. But as we go further into the game, we unlock more areas in the game that we can kind of research around, like these ruins up on the cliff face here. And I will say this game has spectacular music as well as visuals, so go ahead and listen for like 45 seconds and I'll come back and talk more about the vibes we're checking out this week. Enjoy! It just got that crunchy sort of synth sound that I love from this era of games, but you can see where we're kind of going here. We're investigating these ruins, and we're starting to find different imagery, and I'm just showing you guys basically the first maybe quarter of this game. But if you're interested in it whatsoever, I can't recommend Necronomicon enough. You can emulate it on basically anything. You don't need to be like me and buy an original copy to experience the game, but it is just an absolute blast on the look and the feel version of this. And maybe one day, if this gets more popular, we'll get a translation. But now moving over to the next game, and it's a personal favorite of mine. It is Dracula Hakushaku, or the Man Called Dracula, or if you listen to the title screen, it is just called Dracula. It has 3 different names. Now this was made by the same people that made Dead of the Brain 1 and 2 on the PC Engine, Sharp X68000 and PC-98. And the graphical styling absolutely shows, and I will put this intro up with the music after the credits because it is so much fun. I love this musical composition, but I also just love what this intro does. Scrolling into this church here, you're going to see something that you do not expect whatsoever as the doors open up, and you do get some text, of course. We're just here for the vibes. We don't really know what it says. But you get these nuns and I guess women or priests, kind of look like an 80s hair metal band to me, but this visual pops up so often on the internet when they talk about 16-bit art from Japan. This is absolutely iconic, and it sets the tone for everything else you're going to be seeing in the game. And if that's not Sebastian Bach, then I don't know who it is. But I remember when I first saw this, I knew I had to get the game and I had to experience it myself, and it is one of Fairytale's best works. Now again, fair warning, some of the subject matter that I will not be showing you here is definitely Japanese visual novel based. It's not bad whatsoever, but it is certainly something that YouTube doesn't allow me to show you, so if you're not into that, maybe just follow along with this video and disregard the rest of it. But this has a little bit more puzzle aspect nature to it than Necronomicon does. We have found this bloody knife on the ground that has been used on somebody, and we can bring it into our inventory. This is a point-and-click adventure game with heavy visual novel elements to it, where Necronomicon was more of a visual novel game with some puzzle elements. And we try to use the knife on this murder of crows here. It's true, they are a murder, but instead we use this walking stick that we have. We must wave it around in the air somewhere, I don't know, to find a dead horse on the street. That is weird in and of itself, and it's prefacing something in this town is not right. But if we use that knife to cut away at the dead horse, we get a rib bone, which we can then give to this dog in front of this door to make him occupied so we can actually go inside. The logic in the puzzles here always makes perfect sense. It kind of feels like LucasArts, if LucasArts made Japanese visual novel games with some adult flair included in them. But again, on the vibe-wise, with the heads-up display, with that Christian iconography, with all of the different artwork and its use of light and shading, it just looks incredible. But again, just like Necronomicon, this game has an absolutely spectacular soundtrack, so go ahead and listen for like 30 seconds this time, and I will be right back. But enjoy. It's just an appropriately eerie soundtrack when you meet that man sitting on the chair and his friend holding the clock there, and as you pan to the left and fill the pool up, you wonder to yourself, what exactly was that for? But there is a church further down the road, and this game does have simple puzzles sometimes. You just need to rearrange this panel until you can make the pentagram on it, and then that door in the back will open up. And I just love the puzzle aspect nature and just how mysterious this game is. You're always seeing something that you can't quite access yet, and you know you're going to have to come back to it. But as we enter into this chapel, suddenly we're met with all of these women in fancy ornate dress, and we're wondering what's going on here. And again, there are some scenes I'm going to cut out in between this that I can't show you, but they are quite interesting and very artistically well done. The artists for Fairytale did a great job making this sort of artwork, but you can see that there is a sacrifice on the table, but suddenly this guy from the back jumps in and snaps the priest's neck clean in half. And that's just getting you to basically the intro to A Man Called Dracula. It's a spectacularly weird, intriguing game with an amazing soundtrack, and I can't recommend it enough if you're into this type of thing. But leave me a comment down below and tell me if you've been enjoying it just here for the vibe so far. If you are, I'll make another episode short of that. The intro to this game is after the credits. Bye bye.